Good morning, everybody. Top of the morning to you. Good morning, my neighbors. We are here. It is Monday, January 9th, 2023. Forgive the look of the new studio. We are still in the process of building it up, so I do appreciate you guys bearing with us right now. Before we get started, guys, make sure you head on over to loudmajorityus.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out the shop. Make sure you never miss out on anything we've got going on. We got a lot of big stuff coming up for you guys. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you know what's been going on. I'm going to be rocking and rolling with you guys from here on out. With Sean making the big move. So this will be the first big week with me on my own for the moment. But I've got fantastic guest hosts coming in. A whole lot of local people just to, we want to share the love here on The Loud Majority. So make sure you guys, if you're on Facebook, hit that like button. Share this video out across all your platforms. If you're on Rumble, smash that Rumble button. Copy and paste that URL. Put it out all over your Getters, all over your True Socials, all over your Twitter. Let's blow this thing up. I didn't get a chance to talk about this last week because obviously there was a big thing going on in the House of Representatives. So I do want to give a shout out to a lot of the local school boards here on Long Island. I know Lindenhurst has done it. I know Sachem has done it. I know, I believe Elwood did it as well. There's a whole myriad of schools that did it, but I got to see my local town of Lindenhurst vote 8-0 to let Kathy Hochul know that we will not be accepting vaccine mandates here on Long Island, and I just want to say how proud I am that these school boards are starting to get the hint. They're starting to get the hint that this matters to a lot of people. This matters to a lot of people, and I think that at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of them may not have known exactly what was happening, or maybe they weren't paying attention, or maybe they believed it. I don't really know. But seeing the entire collection of Long Island school boards really get on board with this is incredibly exciting. I know I missed a bunch of them in my list right there. If your school board has done it, just let me know so that I know that we don't have to go to that school board and raise some hell. But if your school board is not going to do that, also let me know so that we can figure out how to get some people down there to really help protect the kids against something that, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it doesn't work as well as it was advertised because obviously we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and I'd like to keep these channels. But you guys all know exactly what's going on. You guys all know what's going on. You know that this Damar Hamlin situation probably isn't exactly everything it's being said it was, and we don't want to see any more incidents like that. We saw, we went over it on the show the other day, 759 premier athletes just dropping with cardiac issues. We don't want to see that happening to any of our kids. So if your school board has not gotten on board yet, please do let me know, because today's show is all about kids. It's all about the kids and the way things are just a little bit different than they were 15, 20 years ago when I was in school. And I'm not sitting here like some old geezer talking about, how I had to walk to school both ways, uphill with no shoes, through the snow, through a graveyard. I'm not going to sit here and do that. However, when I was in school, things were just a little bit different when it came to the way kids interacted with each other. And I'm particularly talking about fighting. All right, kids will fight. Kids will always fight. There's nothing that will ever change that. That's just the way it works. You got 15, 16-year-old boys who want to be alpha males, and they're out there showing how tough they are. But over the last couple of years, some things have really changed. And I'm not talking about the list of school shootings. We can go on all day with that. We can go on all day with the school shootings. School shootings I have to put into a separate category because that is a level of violence that there is no comprehending, no matter how many PhDs decide to dive into it. Obviously, we've seen school shootings go up, or we've seen the coverage of school shootings go up. We can go either way on that. But what I want to talk about is the baseline level of just violence in the schools. See, when I was a kid, it was not uncommon to go behind the school at the end of the day. You and, somebody you got a problem with, you guys break out the fisticuffs. One guy gets his ass kicked, the other guy doesn't. You go home, you put some ice on it, you go back to school the next day. That was it. You took your lumps like a man. I won some, I lost some. Everyone I know won some and lost some. That was just the way it worked. You came into school, you had a black eye, everybody made fun of you for a week. That was it. But we're starting to see a level of violence that is just a bit over the top, and this really got to me. I saw this on the news the other day up in Yonkers. This coming from NBC4 New York. Students stabbed inside of a Yonkers school. 2 teens charged with attempted murder. A 16-year-old was stabbed inside of his Yonkers school during a fight Friday morning. Police and school officials said the teenager who was stabbed was on the second floor of the Yonkers Middle School before 9 a.m. Later underwent surgery for his injuries and is expected to recover. According to the Yonkers Police Department, the 16-year-old student was assaulted by 2 17-year-old students. Allegedly, the dispute originated in an area of the second-floor bathroom, escalating to physical violence when the 2 older students punched and kicked the younger student, and then one of the older students stabbed the younger student with a knife at least 3 times. It is not clear what they were arguing about. Now, it's really not important what they were arguing about, obviously. Who cares? Whether it was a girl or one of them stepped on their shoes or whatever the hell it could be. Maybe they got into an argument at practice. Who the hell knows? But I don't know when. I do not understand when young people started to display this level of violence. I mean, there were fights in my high school left and right. It was like no big thing. You know, at some point, and I didn't go to the most overly violent school. It wasn't overrun by gangs. It wasn't like I was going to Crenshaw High School in South Central Los Angeles where it's overrun by gangs. No, I went to your basic run-of-the-mill Long Island High School. It wasn't it happened so often that it almost wasn't an event sometimes when you found out who the 2 people who were going to fight. I don't know when, as a culture, or why, we have escalated to this level of violence where you bring in knives and guns into school to kill individual people. I don't understand it. It is a mind-blowing thing that we as a culture need to figure out because violent young men turn into violent older men. And when older men are violent and do not understand how to control that, you have a problem across your entire society. This back to the NBC4 news article. School security responded to stop the fight, according to police. A school nurse tended to him immediately, and he was taken to a local trauma center in stable condition and is undergoing surgery to treat his injuries. The 2 other students, both male, were taken into custody, police said. Police said that they were charged with attempted murder and assault. Due to their ages, no identifying information will be released. The school returned to normal operations before 9 a.m. Officials said. The suspects and the victim all live in Yonkers. Police said the 3 students knew each other, but they were not sure what sparked the fight. The situation was quickly brought under control by school personnel. There was no threat to public safety. Yonkers Public School Communications Officer Jeriel Fernstein said the school's pupil support professionals, what the hell does that even mean? The school's pupil support professionals, wow, we're just adding words to make people feel important, are available to assist students and staff. There will be additional district staff at the school throughout the day. The Yonkers Middle School serves 6th through 12th grade students on Rockland Avenue. Pupil support professionals, man, we are just giving useless people ridiculous titles. It used to be called guidance counselors. That's what it used to be called. Now they're pupil support professionals. This is absolutely absurd. And this is not just a problem that spans the width of New York City. This stuff is going on all over the place. And it's not only happening in schools, it's happening throughout families. I don't know what is it depression because of the pandemic? Is it loneliness? Is it the fact that they're trapped on their phones all day long, looking at screens? I don't know what it is. I have absolutely, but we as a culture need to get back to a time where, you know what? Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that fighting doesn't happen. I'm not going to say it's okay. It was never okay when we did it as teenagers. It's not okay when it happened now. But there was never, I never thought as a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boy that when I got into a fight at school, I never thought to myself, I might not make it home today. When I got into a fight with my cousins or my 2 stepbrothers, I never thought of that as, you know what, I might not make it out of here. But we are certainly starting to see more of that. This story from The Blaze. A 12-year-old Oklahoma girl accused of stabbing her 9-year-old brother to death. 12 and 9. 12 years old, stabbed her 9-year-old brother to death. A 12-year-old girl is in custody in juvenile detention facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, after she allegedly stabbed her younger brother to death. This coming from The Blaze from Just yesterday, at 11:45 Thursday night, Tulsa police received a call about a horrific stabbing of a 9-year-old boy at an apartment in the south central part of the city. When they arrived, they found EMTs and firefighters already administering CPR. They quickly transported the boy to the hospital, where he was immediately taken into surgery. Unfortunately, all of the emergency interventions could not save him. He passed away from his injuries at 2:37 a.m. the following morning. I mean, how do you go on after that as a parent? What happens in your brain where you're sitting there thinking to yourself, my 12-year-old daughter just stabbed my 9-year-old son. I don't understand how this is at all possible whatsoever. I don't understand how we as a culture have allowed this sort of thing to happen. As I've said, and I'll keep saying it on this particular topic, I don't understand at what point, when, what year, what was the changing point between the random ass whoopings you would get behind the schoolyard and stabbing someone in the cafeteria. This has been going up across the board, all over the place, and it seems as though no one really has any idea what to do about it or where it's coming from. This, back to the article. Even worse, the boy's 12-year-old sister is the main suspect in his death, according to police. She had woken a parent that night to confess that she had stabbed her brother. The parent believed that the parent believed to be the child's mother made the initial call to police Thursday. Because of the age of the suspect, no names were associated or released. Intent is going to be a key component that the court system will have to work out, said Captain Richard Mullenberg. Obviously, we did some interviews, but the interviews with the 12-year-old were just preliminary. I mean, motive? Really? Motive? I mean, what? I fully believe that we need to hold dangerous people accountable. But at what point do we sit here and say that maybe punishment isn't always the greatest form of dealing with this sort of incident? Maybe something was happening in the home. Maybe we need to look at ourselves as a culture. What would possess a 12-year-old girl to stab her brother to death? This back to the article. Mullenberg stated that the suspect has been taken to the Family Center of Juvenile Justice and that the Tulsa Police Child Crisis Unit will be in charge of the investigation. The case will likely be adjudicated through the juvenile court system. This, unfortunately, has no easy end or easy path, he continued. This is going to be a long, convoluted process that is probably going to be extremely taxing on everyone involved. You think? You think this might be extremely taxing on everyone involved? On the parents? Who's got to figure out what they did? These people are going to live with this for the rest of their lives. And what did we do as a culture to either initiate a 12-year-old girl being this violent to kill her brother, or what did we do as a culture to not stop it? How many signs were missed? Are we going to look at this girl's internet traffic? Because you know damn well she's sitting there on that iPad all day long. What exactly are we doing as a culture to initiate this sort of thing? And this is going on all over the place. But back to the article. A neighbor in a nearby apartment complex expressed sympathy for the young girl who has been accused, as well as for her mother. She's losing 2 children at one time, the woman said. Her life or the little girl's life will never be the same, especially the little girl. She advised the mother to be strong, even under these heartbreaking circumstances. The boy's death marks the second homicide and second suspected fratricide, in Tulsa since the new year. Oh, very good. Oh, that's fantastic. So not only is this the first time a young person has been killed in Tulsa this year in the first 9 days, but it's actually the second time. This is fantastic. Well, I guess never mind. I'm not even going to go there. But this brings on a bigger problem that we see across cultures, across places, across cultures. What is happening? This article coming from the New York Post. Teen-on-teen crime, part of a troubling spike in NYC youth violence. This from, who wrote this one? This from Tina Moore over at the New York Post. A growing number of New York City kids are getting shot, and other youngsters are the ones pulling the trigger in the majority of the cases, police data show. Just this week, a 17-year-old girl was charged with the murder in a fatal shooting of a 14-year-old boy in the Bronx. What the hell are we doing? I mean, look, for the longest time, it was young boys that were violent. young boy. I would never in my wildest imaginations, growing up as a 17-year-old, think that one of the girls in my school would shoot and kill a 14-year-old. What are we doing here? And, I'm not one of these people that's going to sit here and say, oh, it's the music, it's the movies, it's the video games. You're never going to get that out of me. Because I grew up in the era where Eminem and Marilyn Manson were blamed for Columbine, where they blamed Grand Theft Auto for the rise in crime among young people. And I remember thinking to myself, wait a minute, I listen to Eminem, I listen to Marilyn Manson, I play Grand Theft Auto. I'm not shooting up my school. Something here is different. Something is different. This back to the article. Young Prince Shabazz was slain while walking with his 15-year-old brother in Fordham Heights on November 30th over what police believe was sparked by a drill rap beef targeting the older boy. What the hell does that? So they got into a rap beef. And then someone else decided they were going to kill them. Really? So you lose a rap battle, and now you're going to kill the next person? Have we seen 8 Mile? That's not the way this game works. That's not the way it works. You lose, everybody laughs at you, you go home, you come back the next week. See, this, I think, really comes down, and it really boils down to the fact that we have stopped teaching our kids how to lose. We have stopped teaching young people what it means to lose. Okay? Because when I was growing up, if you lost something, you went back and you tried again. That was it. You know how many times people would get into fights, the one would lose, and then the one that lost would challenge the same guy again later on in the week once his face healed up, once it all went away? You won or you lost. But you lived to fight another day. Not anymore. Apparently this murder in the Bronx was caused by a loss of a rap battle. What are we doing here? This back to the article. NYPD brass said it's part of a troubling trend. Unfortunately, we are seeing the highest level of youth under the age of 18 involved in gun violence, NYPD Chief of Detectives James Eget said on WABC's radio Cats at Night on Wednesday night. Always a good interview with Mr. Castamatidis over there. The chief pointed to the availability of guns as one possible reason for the spike. There we go. The availability of guns. Really? In New York City, there's a high availability of guns? What the hell are we talking about here? What the hell? High availability of guns, my ass. This is ridiculous. Back to the article. In certain circumstances, there is no repercussions when people get arrested for guns. Okay, now we're talking. He told John Castamatidis they're coming right out of court. Now, that's very important to understand because if having an illegal gun is a crime, one should be arrested for that. But obviously we know that it is next to impossible for a New York City resident to even possess a firearm legally. However, if you go to Times Square, there's all those flashing billboards saying this is a gun-free zone. Because, Mayor Adams, Kathy Hochul, the criminal's not going to go, oh, shit, well, I had my Glock on me, but I guess I've got to go bring it home now. My illegal Glock, I've had it on me, but now I've got to bring it home because I'm entering a gun-free zone. No. All you're doing is letting criminals know that would be a good place for them to commit burglaries, to commit assaults, and to commit murder because they know the criminals are the only ones holding guns there. Back to the article. NYPD statistics show that youngsters pulled the trigger in 98 shootings in the 5 boroughs through September 1st of this year, with 119 of their targets also being under the age of 18. A department memo obtained by the Post in September said that 12.7 of the identified shooters were under the age of 18 during the first 8 months of 2022, a significant jump from the same time period in 2017, when only 9.2% of the shooters were identified as teenagers. So almost doubling. Up about 25%. Up about 25% over the course of 5 years. What's changing? Certainly not availability to guns, I'll tell you that. New York gun laws have only gotten stricter, particularly in the 5 boroughs and New York City. Throughout the last year, police said there were 102 underage shooters who targeted 138 other young people in the Big Apple, according to NYPD data. Police said that a teen pulled the trigger in the first shooting of 2022 and wounded a city cop outside of the 25th Precinct Station House on January 1st. The 17-year-old accused gunman has not been identified because of his age. NYPD cop Keith Wagerhauser Yep, I'm messing that one up. Survived the shooting, but others, particularly teen victims, have not been so fortunate. In October, a 15-year-old, Jaden Burnett, was shot and killed on the Queens A train during a scuffle between two groups of teenagers, according to police. Cops later charged Keandre Russell, 18, in the fatal shooting. There you go again. What happened to just beating somebody up? What happened to just getting into an old school fist fight? Nope. Because not only do we have younger criminals, we have younger criminals that are cowards. Anybody can pull a trigger, okay? That's not hard. Standing there, taking your licks, getting your ass beat every once in a while, that is what makes you into an adult. Because guess what? I've said it for years as a joke, but I always think that every young man on planet Earth should get his ass kicked at least 3 times in his life. One by his friends, one by his dad, and one by a total stranger. If we did that every once in a while, maybe people would understand that it's not okay to be an asshole in public. But now sure enough, now we got teenage gangbangers just roaming around with guns. And when they get caught, what happens? Nothing happens. They get let right out. I remember when we would get into these sorts of fist fights outside of the schools, nothing would happen afterwards. So we kept doing it until one of us got caught. But that's why you had to get out of the school first. This, back to the article. Earlier that month, a 14-year-old repudiated gangbanger with 18 busts already under his belt was named as a suspect in at least 2 more shootings. 14 years old, this kid's been arrested 18 times. You're not going to tell me that's a societal thing. Something is happening in this kid's life. 14 years old, gangbanger, arrested 18 times. Was a suspect in at least 2 more shootings. What is happening in the home? Is it the fatherlessness rate among inner city youth? Could that be it? Could it be the fact that there's nobody raising this kid? I'd say that probably has something to do with it. There's way too many sperm donors out there and not enough fathers. I'll tell you that. The teen, who was not identified because of his tender age, really, allegedly opened fire at a Dunkin' Donuts worker on September 19th and was involved in the shooting of a 20-year-old man shot in the leg on West Kingsbury Road just 6 days later. So not only did he shoot a Dunkin' Donuts worker, but less than a week later, he just shot some guy in the leg for what appears to be absolutely no reason. Also in October, a 17-year-old drill rapper, what the hell's a drill rapper? A drill rapper was charged with the murder in a fatal shooting of a rival round. That's the one with the rap battle. You lose a rap battle, you shoot somebody in the face. That's really the way things go. These kids need to understand that rap battles have been going on since the late 1970s, and people weren't killing each other every time you lost, every time you got dissed, every time somebody said something about your mother. You didn't shoot them, all right? You went back and you won the battle, or you just punched them in the face. That way everybody got to go home. And the other guy had to explain to his mother and his father why he just got his ass kicked. Okay? Because I got news for you. There's just about nothing worse than going back to your father with a giant raspberry, your eyes all blown up, and he's got to look at you going, really, my boy just got his ass whooped? Nothing worse in the world than that. In September, a 15-year-old accused gunman was charged with gunning down a 17-year-old girl while she was in her car in the Rosedale neighborhood of Queens. A lot of this is gang-related, Essing said. The drill rapper with social media ties and the availability of guns for these young kids. It's not the availability of guns, guys, okay? There's going to be guns out there. There's always been guns out there, and this kind of stuff has not happened. You don't think there were guns in the 1950s when everybody had guns? In the 1960s when people just got into fights? Like the Greasers, like every one of those, like the Outsiders? You'd have 2 groups of guys standing in a park in the middle of the night. They'd get into a fight and everybody would go home. Well, the Outsiders is a terrible example because that didn't end so well for Johnny, right? That was his name, I think. He also pointed to social media, telling Catsimatidis, you have a lot of it where the taunting goes back and forth and unfortunately, a lot of these kids resort to violence. Exactly, because they've never been taught how to just deal with it. You don't think cyberbullying is a thing across the entire social media ecosphere? Have you read any feeds about us in the last 2 weeks? People just out there just talking shit. But we grew up in a world where we knew how to handle bullying, where we knew how to handle ourselves in that sort of capacity. Now, those days are long gone. Those days are long, long gone, where people can just handle things appropriately. Now everybody's got to threaten people. Now everybody's got to resort to ridiculous kinds of violence, over-the-top kinds of violence. And it's a real shame because, you know what? I think growing up fighting in the neighborhoods with guys, and look, I end up being friends with these people later on in life. It's not like this is some sort of, gang-related thing that was ever going to turn into something more. It was just teenage boys being teenage boys. And that's what you're going to get a lot of on this show. On this show, you're going to get a lot of boys will be boys sort of talk, because I think that there is a way for teenage boys to grow up the way I grew up and make it all pretty much okay in the end. Where I'm not saying everything we did was perfect. However, what I am saying is that there's a certain amount that we should be able to tolerate. We should be able, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be punishments. When we fought in school, we got suspended. And then we went home and we got our ass kicked again for getting suspended. That was the way it worked. So when you fought somebody, it better be worth it. But that apparently has all changed. This back to the article in the New York Post. Teen violence has even spilled over into the Bronx juvenile facility, no shit, where there are at least 256 youth-on-youth incidents as of June 30th, nearly doubling the 115 attacks in the same period in 2021. The city's Administration of Child Services told the Post attacks on staffers at the Horizon Juvenile Center in the Bronx are also up 17%. Thanks to the state's Raise the Age statute, the city has been forced to yank violent 16 and 17-year-old defendants out of Rikers Island and into less secure facilities. And there it is. And there we go. Sure enough, idiot politicians in Albany taking these 16 and 17-year-old gangbangers out of real prisons where men can show them what violence is really like, and putting them into these butter-soft juvenile detention facilities where they can be the top of the food chain. See, that's what's important to understand. You put a violent 16 or 17-year-old into Rikers Island, they're going to run into real criminals. They're going to run into people who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, who have nothing to lose. But instead, you put these 16, 17-year-old gang leaders, gang members, gang bangers into with low-level teenage criminals who stole a car or some petty theft. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think is I'm somebody who believes that 16 and 17-year-olds, you know what, at a certain point, you know right and wrong. You know what your own decisions are. You're going to be running around with a gang. You're going to try to tell me, oh, no, he's a 16-year-old. No. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he is doing. And, of course, the state portrayed this Raise the Age statute as some sort of glory for social justice because perhaps it may disproportionately affect black and brown youth. Well, you know what? I can't help you with that. There's a really good way to stay out of jail. It's called not committing crimes. I make you this promise on this show, and I'll try not to make too many promises that I can't guarantee, but I will make you a promise that if you don't commit a crime, there's a very, 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 very low likelihood of you ever ending up in jail. Committing crimes is an individual choice. So don't try to tell me it's some bullshit on some societal level. Don't try to tell me that these 16 and 17-year-old gangbangers from the Bronx are somehow affected by the long-lasting impact of slavery in America. Don't try to tell me that bullshit. The reason why they're doing this is because their father isn't living in the home. The reason why they're doing this is because mom's probably out working 2 jobs just trying to make the rent. So they have no male role models in the neighborhood. They have no male role models in the neighborhood, so they find the older guys who are probably running these gangs, and that's how they groom them to be the next leaders of the West Side Crips or the Who Gives a Shit Bloods. That's how this stuff happens. It's just a perpetuating system because each individual person chooses not to make a certain decision on their own. But this, back to the article real quick. In September, Richard Aborn, the president of the Citizens Crime Commission, which helps craft NYPD policy, said that research shows that the average teenager picking up their first illegal gun has dropped over the years from an average of 16 to 17 to 12 to 13 years old. What are we doing? What are we doing? It's crystal clear. We are failing our kids, Aborn said. We need to get ahead of it. It is a national trend, but it doesn't mitigate it. I'm sorry. I actually hadn't read to the bottom line of that article when I saw that. That's one of the most unbelievable stats I think I've ever seen. that the average age, the first time a young person picks up an illegal weapon, goes from 16 to 17 down to 12 to 13 years old? Why aren't you playing video games like we all did? What is happening? Why aren't you at practice? Okay? When I was 12 and 13 years old, what was a gun? I was too busy. I had football practice. I had baseball practice. I was in Little League. Now, the average age, not the lowest, but the average age a young person is picking up their first illegal weapon is 12 to 13 years old. This is terrifying. And if we as a culture, if we as a society, particularly we as a city, do not get a hold of this, do not rope this in, whatever it's going to be, we are going to have much bigger problems coming forward. Alrighty, guys, I got a quick story for you guys about what Kevin McCarthy actually gave up in the in his trade for the votes with Matt Gaetz. Let me just pull this up real quick. But guys, make sure you guys head on over to loudmajorityus.com, sign up for the newsletter, check out the shop, so you never miss out on anything we got going on. If you're on Facebook, make sure you hit that like button, hit those three little dots right over on the top of the screen, and invite your friends to like the show. If you're on Rumble, smash that Rumble button, share this URL across all of your platforms so that we can help grow this page. Also, guys, head on over to rumble.com/LFA. You can catch Sean's new show over at 10 o'clock. You can catch my new show over at 1 o'clock over on LFA TV. We want to thank Jeremy Harrell for giving us the opportunity to help him grow that network. Nothing like cold coffee. But now, on to what Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert were fighting for. This is very important, and I want to make sure you guys understand what they are fighting, what they fought for. There's some wonky stuff in here that we're going to skip over, but mostly the important stuff. The important stuff on why Matt, why a lot of people got mad at him for, dragging on this process and making the Republicans look ununified. No. I don't really care if we unify around the same old. I'm happy that Matt Gaetz was able to fight and Lauren Boebert was able to fight for what they believed was important to their constituents, along with people like Andy Biggs and Byron Donald. They were able to fight Kevin McCarthy and get these sorts of concessions. The biggest one, and it's going to be going on all this week, is the adopting of the new rules for the House of Representatives. See, in the U.S. Constitution, it talks a lot about what the role is of the House of Representatives, but what it does not do is actually go over the procedures on what each House, on what each Congress should do. And that's why there is a Rules Committee, and they swear the rules in usually about the first week that Congress is in session. So now, apparently, Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert have secured 3 seats for House Freedom Caucus members on the Rules Committee, so they will be able to help decide what goes into what. Now, what are some of these rules? First off, and a lot of these, when you hear them, you're not going to be like, oh my God, they were asking for the world. They were asking for very, very, very basic things. Like, I don't know, how about the fact that you can't pass a bill within 72 hours of it being brought to the floor? That's 3 days. Wow, what a thought. Maybe we should give our congressmen time to read the bills they're voting on. What a thought. I would have never thought something like that would have happened. 3 days. You got 3 days, 3 working days. I don't believe the weekends are going to count. You cannot bring a bill to the floor within 72 hours of the vote. So if you bring a bill to the floor, it can't be voted on for at least 3 days. That seemed like a big concession to a lot of people. How about this? How about not to raise the debt ceiling without spending cuts? That's a big one, considering we are borrowing ourselves into infinity at this point. What are we at, $31 trillion now? $31 trillion, a debt we will never pay back? I believe that's $120,000 per American citizen that we are now in debt. $120,000 per American citizen, something we will never, ever even consider paying back. We're getting to the point now where our interest payments on the debt are more than the amount of money we take in. That is how a society dies. That's important to understand, guys. We are on the precipice if we do not cut some of this spending. And I'll be one of the only conservatives to tell you this. And it might piss off a lot of my Republican friends, and that's okay, because that's basically what I do, is piss off my Republican friends. We need cuts across the entire board. And yes, I'm talking about military spending. We are currently not at war. So why do we have a military budget that is higher than it's ever been? Why? We are not at war. I don't understand. Well, I understand why, because a lot of these people end up getting jobs with Raytheon and Boeing and a lot of these defense contractors. And a lot of these people were put there by the defense contract, by the military-industrial complex, which is a real thing. If you need any proof of that, all you've got to do is look at the fact that Joe Biden got us out of Afghanistan because we wanted to end endless wars. We wanted to end the endless wars. Only to then, 3 months later, get us into a pseudo-conflict with Russia via Ukraine. All that money that's being sent over there, it's not, a lot of it isn't actual dollars. It's missiles, it's bombs, it's tanks, it's weaponry. And all of that gets paid for by the American taxpayer to the military-industrial complex to keep the chain moving, to keep the wheels grinding. This is what people don't seem to understand. We got out of Afghanistan. Cool, the war's over. Fantastic. That's great. But now we're just funding another war. And you think this war is ever going to end? This war is never going to end. The only way this war ends is with the death of one of these leaders. And Vladimir Zelensky is like 40 years old. So we're going to have to see if Putin dies. Because neither one of them can end this war. And that, the increase in the debt limit without spending cuts is probably the one provision they got here that I think could help save this country. Also, one big one, votes on term limits. This, I wasn't into term limits for House members for a very long time because I always felt they have a 2-year term limit. You don't like them, you can vote them out. Now, obviously, people are going to say, oh, well, yeah, obviously that doesn't work. People stay in there for 40 years. I don't know. Maybe people like them there that long. I don't know. There was never a serious challenger here on Long Island to Peter King. Maybe people liked him. If they didn't, maybe they should have primaried him. We're starting to see that all over the place. People getting primaried left and right. We saw with Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney probably could have served in the House for the next 40 years. But she screwed up and got beat by Harriet Hageman. Not only beat by Harriet Hageman, but got beat in the worst primary loss in American history of all time. So it turns out if you really want to primary one of these people, go ahead and do it. If a random woman from Wyoming can beat the daughter of the former vice president, then you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. Not to mention, I would love to see where some of these Congress people stand on term limits, because it's important to know that if the House votes on term limits, it's never going to see the light of day in the Senate, and Joe Biden's certainly not going to sign it. Why would Joe Biden sign a bill on term limits for the House and the Senate? He spent 40 years in the Senate. I think Joe Biden was elected to the Senate first in 1972 or 1960. 1972 or 1976. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden was in office when Vietnam was still going on. So obviously, he doesn't believe in term limits. I think he got the job first when he was 28 years old. So he's not going to believe in term limits. But I want to see where these House members fall on term limits, because a lot of these people sit back and they talk about term limits, but never actually do anything on it. One more concession that the Freedom Caucus and Matt Gaetz got from Kevin McCarthy was Kevin McCarthy agreed to a vote on a budget resolution that balances the budget in 10 years. What a thought. What a thought. Oh, boy, they were really asking for the world. All these terrorists, as Dan Crenshaw said, or one party hack out here on Long Island called these people an embarrassment to the Republican Party. Why? Because they want a balanced budget? Because they don't want us to spend more than we're taking in? What a thought. What a thought. That's the same fat ass that told somebody the other day that I was chased off Long Island. Ha. Still here. Still here. Yeah. I know you watch because you can't not watch. Also, the one that everyone's talking about is the motion to vacate. The motion to vacate means any member can call a vote at any time of the majority party to elect a new Speaker of the House. So if Kevin McCarthy does not agree to a lot of these rule changes, all they've got to do is call another speaker vote. He went back on his word. He's not doing what the American people want. And the fact of the matter is, I don't believe in social media postings. However, I'm not seeing a whole lot of people. The ratio of people that are very excited about Kevin McCarthy is incredibly low compared to the ratio of people that were jacked up about what Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert did. They were jacked up about it because finally, maybe they didn't agree with the way it was happening. Maybe they didn't agree with the way they went about doing it, but they agreed with what they were doing. It's time for people to stand up for the base. It's time for people to stand up for the base. And, of course, now this week we're going to have votes on the Rules Committee. We're going to have votes all week on the different rules going on. And wouldn't you know it, there are some Republicans who aren't a big fan of these rules coming out. One, of course, being Nancy Mace of South Carolina. Who is Nancy Mace? Great question. Up until January 6th, nobody even knew who the hell this woman was. She only got famous, or she only got any sort of notoriety, because her office happens to be across the hall from AOC. So when AOC told everybody that nonsense story about how she was hiding under her desk, afraid for her life, as people were banging on the doors, they interviewed the person that it was in the hallway across the way from them and said, "Did any of this happen?" And Nancy Mace said, "No, none of this happened." The cops were kind of walking around and everything was chill. That's the only reason why anybody knows who Nancy Mace is, but of course, now she's taking the full opportunity to go after Matt Gaetz. She blasts this backroom deal, this on Business Insider. GOP rep blasts backroom deal to get Kevin McCarthy the speakership. She claims Matt Gaetz is a fraud. Matt Gaetz is a fraud. Why? Because he did what people wanted him to do? What a thought, Nancy Mace. Rep Nancy Mace took aim at the controversial Rep Matt Gaetz following the tumultuous week in the House and highlights the divisions within the GOP. Wow, this is really down the middle, Business Insider. She claimed Matt Gaetz is a fraud. Every time he voted against Kevin McCarthy last week, he sent out fundraising emails. Mace, a Republican representing South Carolina, told Margaret Brennan on CBS's Face the Nation Saturday, "What you saw last week was a constitutional process diminished by those kinds of political actions." Are you kidding me? Your problem is that he sent out a mass text message? Get over yourself, Nancy Mace. I don't understand how people like Nancy Mace don't get primaried. I don't understand it. I don't understand how these hacks don't get primaried. How someone like Dan Crenshaw, who we're going to get into tomorrow, because we're going to have to wrap up here in a minute. But Dan Crenshaw has now walked back his terrorist comments. Oh, so you mean he doesn't have the sort of temperament to be in the House? He can't pick his words correctly, so he storms out into the hallway and stomps his feet and tells Manu Raji at CNN that anyone who doesn't do what he wants is a terrorist. Now he's going to walk those comments back like the little bitch he's become. It's a real shame. The guy was a Navy SEAL, served this country, gave most of his eyesight. He's got like 5% sight in one of his eye. Like, an unbelievable person. An absolutely unbelievable person, Dan Crenshaw is. But when he got to Congress, I don't know what happened to him. That guy could have been one of our saviors. Based on what he did on The View, based on what he did on Saturday Night Live, I had real hopes for him. But he doesn't seem to want to do that. That's it. Nancy Mace still attacking Matt Gaetz. Mace has represented the 1st District of South Carolina since 2021, though she used to work for his campaign. Mace criticized former President Donald Trump for his role in January 6th. You look at these people, they have no morals, these people. Nancy Mace worked on Trump's campaign, used those connections to then run for Congress, and then sat back and attacked him. There is no loyalty in politics, none whatsoever. People will flip on you like that for no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. Once they get what they want out of you, they just throw you to the side. And that's why I love you guys so much, because you guys have been with us through thick and thin. All eyes were on Mace during the 3rd and 4th day of the speaker vote when she brought her dog Libby into the chamber, saying there's no rules right now. So there's no rules, so you bring your dog into the House? You bring your dog into... I really hope that dog didn't pee all over the floor, because I'm sure there's some members of Congress that were there for so long they ended up peeing on the floor. House lawmakers are set to vote on the rules package, which would set the stage for how the House will operate on Monday. Mace told Brennan that she's unsure whether or not she will support the rules package. I like the rules package, said Mace. It is, for the most part, open, fair, fiscally conservative package we've had in 30 years. I support it, Mace added, but I do not support the small number of people trying to get a deal done or deals done for themselves in private, in secret, to get the vote or a vote present. I do not support that. Oh, so you like the package, you just don't like the people that stuck their neck out to get the package done. I said it on the show the other day, and I'll keep saying it. The Long Island 4, they could have used this little kerfuffle in their favor to get one of their biggest campaign promises handled. Nice and over. Bingo bango. Would have been done with. But none of them have the political fortitude or the intelligence, the foresight to look ahead and how they could have used that. And it would have saved you, the Long Island taxpayer, a whole shitload of money. And guess what? The more money you have, the more it would have saved you. But these people went there like the sheeply little bitches that they are and just went along to get along, just like Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace, listen to this quote. I like the rules package. It is the most open, fair, fiscally conservative package we've had in 30 years, and I support it. But I do not support the small number of people trying to get a deal done in private. She is unbelievable. I have never seen less gratitude in the world. Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Byron Donald, Andy Biggs, Andy Harris, I still want you on the show. They stuck their neck out. And you know what? You think they're going to get help fundraising for their re-election? Matt Gaetz doesn't have anything to worry about. He's going to win in a landslide. Someone like Lauren Boebert, who won by 538 votes, she's got something to worry about. She's got big problems out there in Colorado. Hell, they took over a month to call her re-election because they don't want people like this to win. They went over that election with a fine-tooth comb, 538 votes, I believe it was. They don't want her to win. They do not want a Lauren Boebert to win. Matt Gaetz, they can't take out. He's in far too conservative of a district. Lauren Boebert is in a far more moderate district. That's it. That's the whole thing. They stuck their neck out to do what they thought was right. And some coward like Nancy Mace is going to sit there and tell you that she likes everything they got, she just doesn't like how they got it. Well, how do you think they were going to get it? If they had just walked in there and voted like you did for Kevin McCarthy, asked for nothing in return for that vote, except the promise that you wouldn't be primaried by Kevin McCarthy's super PAC that dumps millions and millions of dollars into primarying Republicans who step out of line. That's it. That's the whole thing. People like Nancy Mace are cowards. Now, I understand. I'm looking at the chat right now. A few people are bringing up Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't like what Marjorie Taylor Greene did. I don't like that she voted for Kevin McCarthy. However, I understand it. And moreover, I am never going to be that Republican that sits there and says, you did 9 out of the 10 things I ask, therefore you're the worst person in the world. Nancy Mace does this all the time. She's a big shit talker on Twitter too, but doesn't answer when you jump into her replies. Marjorie Taylor Greene hasn't been on a committee in 2 years. I think she told Kevin McCarthy that you put me on a good committee, I'll vote for you. See, a lot of these, when Nancy Mace talks about how she doesn't like how these backroom deals get done, where do you think they get done? How do you think anything happens? How do you think any sludge gets moved in Washington? It's two staffers sitting in the back of the room talking about what the other one's congressman wants. That's how it happens. And that's it, and that's all. But we will get to Dan Crenshaw tomorrow. We're pulling up on 901. Look at that. Guys, head on over to loudmajorityus.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out the shop. If you're on Rumble, hit that Rumble button. Also, if you're on Rumble, make sure you subscribe to LFA TV. Catch my new show over there. Same show, different time. 1 o'clock with the Loud Majority Live. Can't wait to see what's going to be going on there. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button. Invite your friends to like the show. Make sure you guys are following the page so you never miss out on what's going on. And also, guys, I'll say it once again. I'll probably end the show with this every time for the next week or so. If you have any issue with something that's going on over here, just shoot me a message. I'll answer. I answer everybody. I stayed on the phone for an hour and a half with somebody yesterday. One person addressing all of their concerns. So if you have an issue with what's happening, just give me a call. Stop believing idiots on Facebook, please. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for tuning in. Monday, we will see you guys on Wednesday. And stay loud, everybody.